In the next 3 lessons, we are going to cover reference geometry, and we're going to use the same model for all 3 lessons. And this model can be found in your Working Files folder under the part name Reference Geometry. Now, reference geometry can be found in the Features ribbon. To the far right, notice Reference Geometry. If I expand it, we have reference planes, axes, coordinate systems, points, center of mass, and mate reference. The 3 that we're going to cover are plane, axis, and coordinate system. But before we cover them, let's talk about why you need reference geometry. You will find as your parts become more complex that when you go to create a sketch, the 3 primary planes or the existing faces that make up your part are not the correct face for your new sketch. You desire something in addition to this, maybe a plane parallel to the inclined face, or a plane running down the middle of the part. This is where reference geometry comes into play. So let's begin. I am going to select the drop-down reference geometry and then select plane. The Property Manager opens, and at the very top of the Property Manager, I have a message. Below this, we have 3 reference windows, first, second, and third. Notice the first one is already highlighted, so I'm going to go out to the screen and select the front face. Now you also notice once I select the front face that a preview of a reference plane is displayed on the screen. And if we go back to the Property Manager, notice the message window has changed to green in color and fully defined. That's a good sign. If you see red, that means you've selected incompatible geometry. Moving down the Property Manager, you'll also notice that the first reference window has expanded. We now have parallel, perpendicular, coincident, angle, and distance. And notice distance is the one that is currently selected. Since distance is selected, let's try this one first. I can increase and decrease the distance by selecting the up-down arrows, or I can key in a value in this window. I can also flip the direction of it, and notice the preview on the screen. It's now on the opposite side of the face. I can also increase the number of planes, and if I close out of the Property Manager, I have 3 new planes on the drawing. If I close out of the Property Manager, you will see 3 planes in the Feature Manager tree. So let's undo this. We'll remove those 3 planes, and let's go back into Reference Geometry and then Plane. Now we're going to try selecting something different for first reference. Let's select the inclined face. As soon as I select inclined face, notice once again, I am at the offset distance option. However, I could change it to parallel. And notice with parallel, it places it parallel, but on the opposite side. Now notice with parallel, I don't have any value that I can input for how far this parallel plane is away from this inclined surface. However, I do have a second reference window, which is highlighted. So let's say, for example, I want to be parallel to the inclined face, but I want this new plane to run through this edge here. So I'm going to select this edge as my second reference. And now notice we have a plane parallel to the inclined face running through that edge. I am going to clear the second reference and clear the face. And now let's try another option. Let's create a plane perpendicular to this face. So I'll select this face as my first reference. I'll then select perpendicular. And then for my second reference, I want the perpendicular plane to run through this edge. So I'll select this edge. And even though the plane is displaying below the model, remember planes are indefinite in size, so they can be expanded. So for example, if I close out of the Property Manager, I can grab these corners and increase the size of it. While it's not necessary that I do that, some people like to expand their planes just so they can see where they're working. I am going to undo again and one more time. Let's go back into Reference Geometry, go to Plane, and this time we are going to select this front face for our first reference, And again, it takes us to the distance option. However, for the second reference, I am going to select this opposite face. And you'll notice in the Property Manager, it immediately switches me over to midplane, which is a very common reference plane option. Now I have a plane halfway between this face and the back face. Let's go ahead and clear the second reference and the first reference. And now let's try angle. So I'm going to select this as my first reference. For my second reference, we'll select this edge here. And then we'll go back and select angle and type an angle of 45 degrees. Now, if that 45 degrees was meant to be 45 degrees in this direction on the top side of the inclined surface, we do have a flip checkbox. And notice it flipped it, and now we're 45 degrees between these two planes. Now, before we conclude this lesson, I am going to clear the window references one more time. And I want to show you just some of the capability of this reference plane. I can select this vertex for my first reference, this one for my second reference, and this one for my third reference. And notice how we created a plane through those 3 vertex points. So you have a lot of possibilities when creating reference planes.